Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abadi. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and tonight we have a special guest, Mark LeRoux. We will have an interview with him, and we'll have that coming up shortly, all here on Vintage Motocross Q&A. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abadi. Thank you for joining me tonight. As I just mentioned, we'll have the Mark LeRoux interview coming up in just a moment. In the meantime, I think Susie is here with me. Susie, want to tell the guests what they're possibly going to win tonight? Because we're not going to have trivia tonight. We're only going to have a viewer appreciation prize. So what do we got?
I think we have a mud scraper, don't we?
You have it right there with you, don't you?
Oh yeah, I do.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
There it is. The Mud Scraper, compliments of Motion Pro. Be sure to visit them online at motionpro.com. Susie will be back a little bit later, and we will have the winner. We'll have the winner a little bit later on of the Mud Scraper.
Yeah.
All right. In the meantime, I do want to thank some of our sponsors who helped make this show possible, including Motion Pro, ARMA, the International Motocross Museum, and of course, Full Circle Racing. Thank you, the viewers at home. And don't forget, if you're watching the show on Facebook or you're on YouTube, please share the show and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, I had the opportunity to speak with a very interesting gentleman just a few days ago, and we were able to capture that on tape. We are live right now, but we were able to capture that, and we're going to be bringing you that video right now. That is, of course, with the author of the latest book, From Prairie City to Hangtown and Back, and the guest is Mark LeRoux. He is a great author. In fact, he's written 2 books before this. So let's get right into the interview with Mark LeRoux. And don't forget, keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. Tonight on Vintage Motocross Q&A, we have an author of a new book. His name is Mark LeRoux. It's a fascinating new book about Hangtown, Prairie City, and one of the most famous races ever in motocross history. All that coming up on Vintage Motocross Q&A. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abadi. Thank you for tuning in to Vintage Motocross Q&A. If you like the show you're about to see, be sure to share it on Facebook and YouTube. Tonight on my show, I have a guest. His name is Mark LeRoux, and I would like to welcome him in right now. Mark, thank you for joining me tonight. Where are you? There you are.
Yeah, hi. Happy to be here. It's great.
It's wonderful to have you here. I'm just going to read right off the back cover of this fabulous book you wrote, which is entitled From Hangtown to Prairie City and Back. But on the back, it says, Mark LeRoux is an aspiring rider in a wide range of life experiences, from racing motocross at the national level to fencing to being a master of horse. In his active career as a third-generation doctor of chiropractic, he treated celebrities throughout volunteer work at the Bill Graham Presents events for 14 years, as well as a national team member of U.S. and Slovenia, where he worked as with an orthopedic surgeon for several years, retiring duly largely to the long-term results of injuries received racing. Mark has turned to writing as an occupation. Boy, you've had a lot of occupations.
Well, my main one was my chiropractic career, 30 years.
Right. Well, let's do this.
I went down a lot of avenues in that because I was single, and I had interests that took me places,
Sure, sure. And I want to talk to you about Slovenia and so many other things as well. But due to the topic of the show and of course the topic of your book, I'd like to give people a little bit of a background on how you got involved in motocross. So why don't you tell me about that? Tell me about when you first got involved with dirt bikes and when you first started racing.
Well, it was kind of a plot of mine to trick my dad into buying a couple Hadakas so that we could hunt better. And that quickly, and I learned in 1966, I learned to ride on the Rubicon Springs Trail.
Tough trail.
Yeah, we were hunting up around Wentworth Springs. We met the caretaker there, and he was real nice. Both he and my father were Freemasons, so they hit it off. And my dad treated him, took care of him, and so we had carte blanche there for a couple years. Anyway, that's where I learned to ride, and then went through this period of a lot of trail riding up out of Forest Hill, mostly, but other places. And about that time, I ran into my school chum, Dave Buckmaster at CNR Cycle World, and he had a Hidaka too, and he lived right across a field from me in North Highlands. And pretty soon we were chasing each other around out in the field, and they had some property across the field that had a oval track on it because Dave's uncle was into go-kart racing, and he learned how to tune two-strokes.
Okay.
And according to Dan Calhoun and some other people, it was Jim that first taught Carl Crank how to tune two-strokes. He later picked up more, at Orangevale Cycle where he started working, but he was part of that group. Dave's uncles were part of the trail riding group that Carl was part of.
Okay, so tell me this: after the Hodaka thing, which, by the way, I commend you for convincing your father to buy you a momotorcycle because it's going to make
I got him to think about it, but it wasn't too hard to do because he had a motorcycle when he was in college in Chicago, in chiropractic college, and he met my mom there, and he took her all the way to Bundy Hill, which was south of Jackson, Michigan, in southern Michigan, to introduce her to my grandparents, on the back of this little thing on the rack, right? No cushion or anything. And she did that.
Yeah. So tell me this, Mark, after the Hodaka days, that was 68. And I've got pictures of you riding here, and we'll get into a lot more of these pictures, but I do have some pictures of you riding here, which looks like 1972 to me by the looks of that CZ, maybe even a little before that. So
that's 71.
71. Okay, I was close. So tell me this: how soon after the Hodaka hunting days did the motocross side of it come to you?
Well, first I brought the Hodaka into my bedroom and took it apart and stripped it down, started running it around, but really about a year interval, and I just went to my parents and I said, I want to race. And they came back to me and they said, okay, you can race, but you got to buy your own bike.
Now, this is in California, or this is in
Sacramento County.
Okay.
Yeah, North Highlands.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and
you're already in California, and the sport is just really in its infancy.
Yes.
At that point. So, where was your first race?
Hangtown.
At Hangtown.
At the first track. Yeah. By 69, early 69, I was looking to buy my first real race bike, and I gravitated towards Penton. So I quickly got up to Gene's Automotive in Loomis, and we were at my father and my friend Dave, who I talked about, and I went up to the first Hangtown, and just as spectators. And the race got badly watered out. The mud, it's legendary, but it's all in the book to read about in detail. And do you hear the attendance was kind of bad. So what they did is they go, okay, we're going to take a second run at this. So in May, they held another Hangtown at that location, Murray's Chicken Ranch, just outside of Placerville, and that was my first motocross race.
Okay. Now I was hearing some humming, and I'm still hearing.
I got a call trying to come in, but it'll stop in a second.
Okay. Now, we were talking about a Sachs just a moment ago, and that was one of your first bikes. And I do have, well, I showed the picture of a Penton, but I did show the picture of you on the CZ. Oh, here's the picture I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's at White Rock.
Okay.
1970. And I was chasing Billy Grossi in that. I was second behind Billy Grossi in that race.
So at that point, are you and Grossi both racing at a professional level, or are you expert?
No. This was novice sportsman. He was a novice sportsman. I was a novice sportsman still. And he had shown up on one of those little Yamaha 125s, and those things were so peaky. It was just I just couldn't out power it, But yeah, it was often me and Billy behind him. After an interesting thing happened, Klaus Nielsen was the Husqvarna Edison die connection to White Rock that helped get it going. He laid out the track there. Well, one day he came to me and said, Mark, I want to teach Carl Crank, how we tune these engines in Sweden and at the factory. And if you let me take your bike, I'd like to use your bike, but it'll be faster when it comes back. And so, oh yeah, go ahead. So Carl had already made a low pipe for me. And so when it came back, I could keep up with Billy's Yamaha. And in the next race, he had switched to Sachs. So it was a little bit underpowered. So I was able to beat him, but it was really because of a power difference.
Okay. So let me ask you this then. Did you go on to turn expert, and did you race at Hangtown during the nationals that were there?
No, I raced by 1970. The Murray Ranch location had been lost because the county didn't want to renew the lease or the permission because there had been local complaints about traffic congestion and stuff. And Mike McGowan of Mike's Cycle and Marine had been the one that had located that property because he knew them, and he was riding on the Plymouth track with friends, and he just kind of pointed the club to this property and said, "Check this out." And so the Hangtown moved to Plymouth, and I raced in that, and I placed behind Billy, and all that's left of the trophy is the plate, but I've got it.
All right. Well, it's a great memory, and because you wrote about the history of the track, to have been there and actually experienced it with such greats as Bill Grossi long before he was with Kawasaki or Husqvarna or anything else.
Right.
That's really something that the viewers should be considering.
And our families got to be big friends. My mom and her mom wrote to each other for years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, you at the start of the show, I did mention about being a chiropractor. So let's go on briefly to fencing, and then there's a picture in the book. It looks like your parents wanted you to be a cowboy at some point. But let's get to the fencing, and where did that come in, and how did that all go?
Well, my dad raised me. Everybody practically was raised on Errol Flynn movies, swashbuckling back then. All the old movies were coming on TV, and so I was familiar with Errol Flynn and the Mark of Zorro and all that. And it intrigued me and seemed like fun. And at one point, my parents, Whammo or some company, put out a Zorro outfit. The hat, the mask, and a plastic sword. I quickly broke it on one of my sisters, poking her. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was always in the back of my head. And in '76, when I was back in college with the goal of going to chiropractic college, one of my assignments in a humanities class was to go to the Renaissance Fair, and I went there, and there was a fencing booth, and that became a home of mine later in life. But there was a guy trying to convince me, guy that ended up becoming a good friend of mine, convinced me to try it. And I said, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I'm not going to just get up on take a 2-minute lesson and go up there and do stupid stuff. But by a couple months later, American River College had an evening program, a fencing program. And I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And we happened to be very lucky. And we had a former women's Olympic team member there and a former Pacific Coast champion there. And both of them became my mentors for the first 2 years of my training. And by then, I was invited to the Olympic workout weekends in San Francisco. I ended up joining the Letterman Fencing Club, which had like former national champions, world team members, national members, and so there was a good training ground for me. And so I was there for, 20 years until 1994 when the Presidio shut down and we lost
So
the
now,
gym.
is this fencing? Is this competitive fencing or just at
Competitive
Olympic level?
fencing, yeah. I was in the association where the Olympic team is chosen from. And I made it, I qualified for nationals in 83 and 84 and competed in nationals.
Okay.
That's like the top 100 in the whole country get into that.
Now,
So
on
I made it that far.
on page 25 of your book, I mentioned a moment ago that it looked like your parents wanted you to be a cowboy.
Yeah, that's downtown on P Street, 17th and P, when I was 3 years old. And first, I guess I had a hop-along. I don't even remember it, but I had a hop-along Cassidy outfit. Those
Yeah.
were popular. Yeah, I thought I was a cowboy when I was a little kid. I did.
Well, that's what California kind of was famous for. And as you mentioned, the old movies and whether it was John Wayne or Errol Flynn.
When I was 16, I won a little quick draw contest with my Colt 22 Frontier Scout, which I still have.
You see,
Right over here, in fact.
So did the equestrian? Is that phone going off again?
Yes, I'm getting spam calls trying to
Can
come
you turn
in.
it off? Can you turn it off? Or is that what we're
hang it
or
up.
are we?
Yeah,
Okay, good. Let's get back to your
trying
question.
again.
Let's get back
Yeah,
to
this
your
is really annoying. It happens every day about this time.
let's get back to your equestrian days. Did the pony thing go to a horse? Did it go on to any competitive riding that way, or was it kind of a short-lived thing?
Well, it was equine skills were always in the back of my head. As a fencer, I taught fencing at the Renaissance Fair for 20 years.
Mhm.
I was head of a chivalric kind of organization at the club for 7 years, and obviously, the completion of a knight's experience is horsemanship, and
Yes.
so it was always in the back of my head. But it was almost by accident that it happened. I had a patient in Santa Rosa who was a horsewoman who rehabilitated race horses and then sold them as show horses, jumpers and show horses and so on. And she had a horse that had a problem, and she wanted me to look at it. It couldn't walk without pain. And long story short, I fixed it with a veterinarian, and it could gallop again and everything. And she popped up. I started riding with her on one of her horses, and then it came up that there was this nice thoroughbred available for sale. And she goes, "Well, you want to buy it? It's a nice horse. It's a grandson of Damascus, and it was hand raised, so it's real sweet." And I went, "Okay." So I bought this horse and I started training. So I trained for about 3 years, all the time. And I didn't really want to go into high competitiveness, but I was getting crazy, and I was thinking about maybe eventing, and it's cross country horse, competition that's in the Olympics. And
Yeah.
but I mostly trained hunter, jumper, and went on some trail rides. There was some great trails outside of Santa Rosa, big horse county. And I wanted to enter one show just so I could, have that experience. So I won a few ribbons there. I won a first place in equitation and placed in jumping and stuff. So it was kind of like, that was I did that. I accomplished that much.
Yeah, that's off your bucket list.
Yeah, I got it on my bucket list. So the last thing I was doing before I went to Europe, I had to sell the horse, and it broke my heart because I loved him.
How old were you during your that horse time?
In my 40s. That was
okay.
That was like 1994 to 1997. And when I was in Slovenia, I was still riding over there. I brought my saddle and fencing equipment too. And I was going to their Olympic training center in Ljubljana, and I was riding at a stable there. And I ended up treating a couple of Lipizzaner, the famous white performing horses, and got an article published on me doing about equine chiropractic in Slovene with a young veterinarian there I teamed up with. So yeah, I went a lot of different ways.
It certainly sounds like it. And one of the things, I mean, I hate to say this, your real job, but we often hear that you became a third generation chiropractor. So was this something you just took a fancy to because your grandfather did it and your father did it and you thought it was a good way to make a living? Or how were you? Because not everybody follows what their grandparents or parents do.
Yeah.
But 40 years ago, that may have been. So what was it about that inspired you to become a chiropractor? And did you go to the same school as them for chiropractic?
In a way, I did. Yeah. My grandfather graduated from Palmer in Davenport in 1921, and the famous B.J. Palmer, son of the founder and the great, philosopher of chiropractic, was his teacher, and he named my dad B.J. LeRoux, in fact, after him. But I grew up in it. When I was a little kid, I was walking around in the office, and by the time I was 9 or so, I was looking through his anatomy books and his pathology books and stuff. I was always kind of biological, I had curiosity, and
Sure.
and of course we were getting regular treatments from him. So for me, it was just a kind of a lifestyle. I really didn't want to for a long time because I saw how my dad had to struggle with it and everything. He had 4 kids, so he had to moonlight and everything. It was pretty tough. And so I really was like, I'm not going to do that. But after I had to give up racing, because of injuries, in 75 was a pivotal year for me because my dad and uncle wanted me to start racing motocross again. And I had a bike and I was practicing. I was going to Helvetia, I was going to Dixon. I was practicing. And, my dad, of course, he was trying to convince me. He said, oh, you're as fast as Bob Hanna. You can do this. But I thought about it and I'm going, what's the chances I can really, do I really want to do this? And I go, I got to get my act together for my life. And at that time, my dad had gone back into full-time practice. He was doing pretty well. And I'd always noticed that my grandfather's hands and my dad's hands in photographs and my hands looked the same. Yeah. And I thought, I probably have that talent. I don't know what you know about epigenetics or transgenetics, but, they found that the third generation in a skill becomes usually a real unique skilled person. And my dad taught me one-on-one while I was in college. I went to Palmer West Campus in near San Jose and did my chiropractic training there. And I was home on a lot of weekends. When I wasn't in a fencing tournament, I was usually in Sacramento and spending time with my dad.
Did any of your brothers and sisters?
Billy came over to get treated. Billy Grossi came over one time to get treated by my dad during that time, and I came over to visit him.
Did any of your brothers and sisters follow the chiropractic field?
No, I had 3 sisters. I was the only one. In fact, I was the only one of my generation. There's 7 in the family, but they're all my uncles and one cousin that became chiropractors in my father's generation. But I was the only one that in the 3rd generation that became a chiropractor.
Okay. I've got one more question, then we're going to get into the book. I was reading that you spent an incredible 14 years as a volunteer. I mean, that's a long time to volunteer for something with the Bill Graham Presents events. What is Bill? Who is Bill Graham? What did he present? And why were you a volunteer for 14 years?
Well, probably everyone's seen Bill Graham if they've seen the film Apocalypse Now. He's the promoter that brings in the Playgirls for the USO, that crazy sequence. Bill Graham's the announcer there. He's the one that throws down the smoke flares and announces the show. That's Bill Graham. Bill Graham was a very early promoter in San Francisco who got bands together during the Summer of Love and all this for free concerts and then for paying concerts, and he built it into a entertainment empire. And by the time I joined in 1977, I joined Rock Medicine section of the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. And I just happened to have neighbors that were doing it, and they invited me to join. And by the time I left, people were standing in line to get to volunteer for this because it was the coolest thing in the world. But I wanted to hone my first aid emergency skills. That's why I did it, and I wanted to support the music because I supported rock and roll, and I wanted to do good, and I did an awful lot of good. I even don't want to hold this too high, but I did get to save someone's life once, and I'm sure I saved a few people's. Like one guy, the big Led Zeppelin concert in '77, he was staring at the sun, and I stopped him, I talked him out of it, and because he was high, and got him into the field hospital so they could check his eyes and stuff because, he could have gone blind.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. But we had baby births. We had a couple of people die. The whole spectrum that you get at it was like a rock and roll MASH unit,
I heard that the guy who was looking into the sun, that was actually the inspiration for the Manfred Mann's Earth Band song, Mama Told Me Not to Look Into the Eyes of the Sun. So you may have had more of an inspiration on this,
well, I don't know, but I don't know. There's, it's an old thing, it's like Icarus flying too close to the sun, but
I get it.
Stevie Wonder went blind because he looked at the sun and he thought it was so beautiful that he just kept staring at the sun. And that's how he went blind. So,
wow.
yeah.
All right. Look,
but I did get to treat some celebrities. I got to have a reputation as a chiropractor.
That was my next question is, I mean, were you on the road for 14 years with Bill Graham once a year,
No.
or you did it when it was in San Francisco? So
in the Bay Area.
Oh, okay. But 14 years is a long time. So you know what? Give us a brief list of some of the people that you treated and why.
John Bon Jovi, because he had a chiropractic treatment at every venue. He believed in it. He wanted a show. He wanted a treatment before every show, and I was known. And I got called up by someone in the clinic and said, John Bon Jovi wants a treatment. Come down here. That was the only time I was actually paid. Other times was all volunteer. But I treated the sax player in the Pink Floyd, Bryan Adams, bass player. Some of the members of the Grateful Dead family. The ex-road manager's wife was my patient at my practice.
Right.
Was at a lot of Grateful Dead shows because of that. Because of Bill Graham, they played in the Bay Area a lot and they were based there. So I was at a lot of Grateful Dead shows.
Okay.
There's some others I can't think of. Oh, I have a lot of rock and roll stories. One of them had to do with the Who in '83 at their supposedly final show. And we were passing out water at the front stage. I was doing front stage triage at that point. And we were handing out water and pulling over mostly small women that were getting crushed and pulling them over and then making sure they were okay. And when it was over, I turned around and looked at the band before I got out, and we weren't supposed to interfere at all. And so I had to stay small. But I looked up and John Entwistle was looking right at me, and I just went like that. And he was playing Long Live Rock, and he's doing this. And he goes at me, that was cool. That was cool.
Well, we've talked about horses, fencing, motocross at an early age, your third generation chiropractor, your volunteer work. We haven't even gotten to the reason why you're here, but we are going to get into that right now. And that is because you are the author of this new book. And I thank you for getting me a hard copy, From Hangtown to Prairie City and Back. And well, you have done, I think, a great service to the motocross field, the history of it, because there is just absolutely too much misinformation on the internet, especially on platforms, whether it's Facebook or TikTok. And it's even gotten to the point of where some people will put up misinformation just to get people to comment on their posts. And that is pretty pathetic because a lot of people take in that information. Well, and years from now, they're going to, it's going to be wrong. So unless somebody puts it in writing the way you have, Mark, it's the only way that history is truly going to be preserved. So without any further ado, tell us what was the inspiration for you writing this book, from Hangtown to Prairie City and Back.
Well, there's three, I guess. One,
you're an author of 3 books, though, too. We're going to get into that. I'm sorry. You said 3, okay. So I'm thinking 3 books. But you are the author of 2 other books. But just for this one right now, what was the inspiration?
I don't even want to talk about those. We won't get to it. But 3 things. One was that after reading this book, Sacramento Motorcycling, I realized that it can kind of concluded saying, this was the most memorable stuff in motorcycling in Sacramento, even though there'll be a future. This was the most memorable stuff. And I was kind of like, what? Are you sure? I said, I think we have like this phenomenal, national race that grew out of the area. That's probably the most famous of all. And that was one motivation. The other was that I had been I was the sole full-time employee at White Rock Motorcycle Park in 1970, and it was really the beginning of the parks that ended up being the present Prairie City SVRA. Because after White Rock failed, and it did for a lot of reasons. It's in the book, but it's kind of funny. But we had McGill's Park, where Tinker McGill, a dirt digger, who worked for Aerojet, his wife was in real estate, he just finagled a lease for this property and got a real sweet deal, and then flipped it, and it became a county park. He flipped it to the county, made a really good profit. But it was Roy McGill who really got that location up and running, and he held some really big races there, put on the first classes there, and then when the county took it over, well, then it became, and then it converted, of course, over to the state, and so funding wasn't a problem anymore.
Let's do this while it's fresh in my mind. Let's clear up the misconception that Hangtown actually took place in the town of Hangtown for their first race. Where was the first race? Why was it called Hangtown? It had to have something to do with a different race, or tell me about that.
Well, Hangtown was one of the first names for Placerville, which is just up the road, from the present site. It's in another county, but it's only like, I don't know, 15 miles up the road, maybe, and maybe 20, not that far. But the first Hangtown was just outside of Placerville in El Dorado County, and that's the start of the one of the starts of that's the 250, I think, junior class at the first Hangtown in January of '69.
Okay.
And Sam White is in the front there with one of the first Montesas that ever got into the U.S., one of the first two. And he was a Dirt Digger original member. Anyway, so it was at Murray's Chicken Ranch, which was just outside of Placerville. And there was this, what are we going to call the race? What are we going to call the race? Well, the club had formed, in April of '68. And they wanted to have a race like Hopetown. They wanted to have a big centerpiece for the club that was a counterpart. And they were talking to the Southern Dirt Diggers, and there was a lot of cooperation there. And no one knows. I tried to reduce it down. I got within a couple weeks where there was a Helvetia, a race at Helvetia where Bill Onga and Mike McGowan were talking, and nobody knows the content of that conversation exactly. Mike does, and I had a big long interview with him, and he's still a friend, and his take on the whole thing is in the appendices in the back of the book, as is Bruce Young's. But I present it in the book, and I kind of leave it up to people. One of the third reason I wanted to write the book was to stop the controversy in the club about how it happened.
Yes.
So I present everything, and I just say, you make up your mind. But there was this 2-week period. You can see, I have the minutes of the club, and I studied them, and you can see that it looks to me like right up to the last, even when they were looking for property and settling on that property, they hadn't really decided on the name until they knew it was there. But there was a squabble over whether Mike McGowan came up with Hangtown or the Dirt Diggers came up with Hangtown. And it's one of those things where serendipity kind of might have come in, where everybody just went Hopetown, Hangtown. Hangtown was a popular name for Placerville, even then commercially.
And I want to make this, I just want to mention this to the viewers. These are the actual notes from the meeting, District 36 meeting minutes. Now, this is from '61.
No, yeah, those are something I put in this latest iteration of the book. I got those from Frank Showers, and that's there just for interest. I didn't put the minutes, the Dirt Diggers minutes I have in the book, because I didn't have time to ask the club if they wanted it. I think that maybe they regard it as private.
Okay. My point, Mark, is this, that the amount of research, I mean, it almost reminds me, and I've never really thought about it with other books I've looked at, but then again, I've read books on the history of motorcycles. We all have. I've read books on the history of racers, but I've never read a book on the history of an event like this. And the amount of research that you have had to do and have done it, your due diligence is beyond imagination. Is absolutely incredible, which makes me think of the question of, when did this start? I mean, you know what? I have to imagine you've had the idea of writing a book about Hangtown many, many years before it actually went from pen to paper. But how long did it take you from, this is it, today I'm sitting down and doing it, until the actual book was published?
Well, that forces me to talk about one of my other books. The Spook Tree. The Spook Tree is a semi-autobiographical story of where I grew up, and it's got a lot of history of the local area in it. And yeah, it's kind of a square version of the book. It's a little taller, but it's a 6x9, where this book is a larger 9x11 Hangtown book. But it's got a lot of local history in it. That relevant to the forming of the state of California, and Rancho del Paso, which was the big land grant where North Highlands and a lot of all that was in, and the startings of the railroad and Sutter and just everything. I have a lot of the origins of Sacramento. I have a lot of that in there, and I do a lot of due diligence to kind of debunk some of the revisionist stuff that's come up and has hurt so much. But there was a point, it was kind of semi-relevant, and the story of how I got into motocross was a big thing in the book. So that was the first time I wrote about, because working at White Rock was a big thing in my life at that time. It was consequential because I spent time with Klaus Nielsen, and he was a big inspiration in what I did later in my life.
Right.
He was always telling me to get out in the world. That's why I ended up in Slovenia. I give him a lot of credit. But
how long did it take you how long did it take you from the day you put it to paper?
Well, I think it took me about 3 years to write the Spook Tree, and I for that, because of Gene's Automotive, when I was going there in 69, 70 all the time, I met all the local dirt diggers. So and in 72, Gene Nunes knew that I was looking for a job, and when Penton West was opening up, Fred Moxley was like, I need someone to help set up. You got anybody? He goes, yeah, Mark LeRoux. And he called me up and said, go see Fred Moxley. So I worked at Penton West in Sacramento, in Rancho Cordova, for a few months, helping him set up. And
Mark, your excitement and details to this story are absolutely incredible. You're a fabulous, wait. You're a fabulous guest. So I feel very comfortable speaking with you. One more time. From the day you went and put the first words on paper till the day it got into this cover, how long did it take?
Oh, gosh. Since I already had, that was the point, since I already had done the preliminaries and put it in the Spook Tree, all I had to do was take it and do some adding in the front and back and some modification in the center.
Thank you, because I had no idea. I mean, I don't know what the Spook Tree is about, and I didn't know it had any effect on the Hangtown book. So that's, I think a lot of us, or many people, think their story is fascinating and they should write an autobiography, or they're experts, so to speak, on a topic, and whether they are or not, I don't know. But it takes a serious commitment and a lot of time in order to do that. And it took you 3 years, and a lot of things in life can come into play and interrupt these creative spells that we have. So that's what I wanted to get to. What do you got in your hand?
I have the very first iteration of the Hangtown book.
Okay.
And that I produced in '83 in time for that Hangtown, because I wanted to put something together.
Right.
And this is it. Okay. And I got everybody to sign it. It's full of signatures, so it's a keepsake for me. But it is 183 pages.
Right.
This current one that I just, kind of republished, I had people coming to me with information, and I learned things, and I kept adding to the book. And it got so big after Torsten Hallman gave me his forward and all his photographs. I had to actually just republish the book for a new copyright, because the copyright law actually requires it.
Okay.
So this book, the current one, is 300 pages.
Yes.
So there's been a lot of expansion, and that was a lot of work, sometimes stressful, because I told you about a story before that was very stressful to go through. About the property, about the house, about the roadhouse, and all that. But so there's been a little bit of sweat and tears
I'm sure there is. Hey, listen, Mark, I got to take a commercial break. When we
Okay.
come back, we're going to go through these amazing pictures that you were able to collect for this book. And I'm sure that's quite a story within itself. Okay. Stick around. We'll be right back with more Mark LeRoux on Vintage Motocross Q&A.
I am Heikki Mikkola. We will be right back.
That was perfect, Heikki. My guest tonight is Mark LeRoux.
That was a fun commercial.
You like that, huh? Yeah, that's that was put together by Jerry Maddox for our sponsors, Gordon McCaffer and McCaffer Work Stands. And you know what? Being you got me this far into explaining it, let's not forget Gordon McCaffer, certified welder in New York, and he builds these really cool bike stands. So be sure to catch up with Gordon on Facebook. And yeah, I had him on as a guest last week. Great welder and just a wonderful guy, a real big enthusiast. Mark LeRoux is my guest here on Vintage Motocross Q&A, and we were just talking about his book. And we're at the point of, well, number one. Well, it's not number one. It's actually like number 10. But, I mean, you got 300 pages in this book and a lot of pictures. And the thing about the pictures is, well, of course, it's fascinating to have them in the book and to be able to see the picture of what you're explaining through the race and things like that. But there are certainly some photos that I've never seen anywhere before. And I'd like to know how you got a hold of them. How about this one?
I believe that's one. I think, oh gosh, there's so many places I got photos, but I think Bruce Young gave me a lot of stuff to use. He shipped me over a couple of boxes of stuff, and Bruce Young, I got to give him a lot of credit. He's kind of been my mentor in this. I think it might have been in there, or it might have been through. I've had so many people send me things that, and of course, Torsten Hallman. Gosh, I can't think of where that. Well,
okay, if it comes to mind,
you know, in the book, there's credits under the pictures, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't memorize them all. But
well, this one says,
I try to put a source credit. It's required, you know, in copyright. So there's someone. It's courtesy of someone, or someone took the photo or something like that.
This photo right here says it's by Mike McGowan, or am I wrong?
Well, maybe I got that from Mike McGowan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a good guy that we all loved. Everybody missed. A big influence on the high point racing, the trailers, the Penton, and just being an all-around great guy, Dave Duarte.
Dave Duarte gave me that photo, or no, I think Bruce Young gave me that. But anyway, Dave Duarte was a very good friend of mine. He was the salesman, the road man for Penton West.
Yes.
And I, of course, so I knew him from the Dirt Diggers before, but I also interacted with him there, and he was a lot of fun then. Real party animal, but he also gave me a lot of information and material for the book. And I was coming and staying at his house just in the last year. He let me stay at his place when I came up in '83 for the Hangtown, and of course, you know, I wasn't able to get down in time, but I was with him on the phone and everything right until the end. Yeah, he was, I miss him a lot. I miss him a lot. I used to talk to him every few days, and I would actually read him stories of the Old West out of source books I had, and he loved it. I would read to him over the phone. What
about this picture, Mark?
James Cross gave me that just last winter, and that's Marion Pyle. with a bunch of, look at some of those bikes. So I had to note that there's one with a rifle scabbard in it, and that was a typical hunting rig.
Oh yeah.
Back in those days, and everybody that went hunting that used a trail bike had a similar rig. You had all your stuff on the back, and you had your rifle there. So at least that bike was set up for a hunting expedition.
What about
that's
this
out
one?
from Orangevale Motorcycles, by the way.
Yeah, I am familiar with Orangevale Cycles.
Yeah.
There was another picture. Actually, you know what it is? It's actually the cover of the book, and next to that van to the left is a young hippie with his hands on his hips. Who's that kid?
Well, I wasn't a hippie. I couldn't call myself that. In fact, I got called a redneck in those days.
Well,
But
yeah.
but because I had short hair, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me at White Rock, and of course, the other side of that picture is in the book, signed by Brad Lackey. That was my van, and you can kind of make up my penton leaning against it, and that's me watching Brad Lackey in front of Torleif Hansen at that July Firecracker in Aram event, and he was leading Torleif there. And Larry Montgomery took that picture. He used to sell pictures at the races. And when I saw it a little later, I was like, whoa, that's the only record of me at White Rock. And that's that's the famous Brad Lackey event.
Yeah.
That went everywhere, you know, was a phenomenon. People were talking about it. And so I have the
Is this
picture
the
for
race?
years.
Is this the race right here? Is this the one we're
That's
talking
it.
about?
That's it.
Okay.
I drove the water truck for that race for 72 hours straight without a break.
All right. And we've got a lot of, I mean, there's just so many pictures in this book that here's another great one. Torsten Holm and Joel Robert in 68.
Yeah, that was part of the batch that Torsten Hallman gave me. He gave me some great photos.
What else did you get from Torsten as far as pictures go? Were there any?
Well,
Because
in
I don't know.
the forward, I used a lot of them. In the forward, that's in the book, in this new iteration of the book, and I put some in the back too of the book. Just anywhere. I didn't, you know, usually in a book you have a page at the end of a chapter, the even number page, and it's blank. But I used every bit of space I could to put something there. So I stick in a photo. You know, here's Joel Robert. Here's you know, this one. Here's another. You know, so I used everything. There's a great picture of Bengt Oberg sitting on a Husqvarna with a 6-gun strapped on and a cowboy hat.
You know, we're going to get into get into, of course, where people could buy the book. I've got a bunch more questions. Where people can buy the book, and whether it's online or they can get autographed copies from you, perhaps. We'll get into that in just a minute. But the pictures also inspired a question for me. Did you interview people for the book? In other words, you and I can sit down, you could tell me a story, but you can only retain so much. You're writing a book, and whether it's Bruce Young or Dave Duarte or Billy Grassi or whoever it might be, did you interview anyone throughout those 3 years for information for the book?
Yeah, I interviewed a lot of people. I interviewed Bruce Young a lot, Mike McGowan. I knew Carl Crank, and he lived up the road from me, so I used to go visit him once in a while. And over the years, I mean, I heard so many stories from him. I know just stuff like, and some that I can't even put in the book, but I know a lot of stuff from him. And then there's Dave Duarte and Tom Stober. I interviewed him. I got a lot of later stuff, you know, 80s stuff from Tom Stober, and there's been other people that I interviewed, but I know I'm leaving somebody out somewhere. I'm sorry if.
Well, no. Here's the thing. We've got plenty of time, Mark. And if something.
Oh, James Cross. I got a lot from James Cross too. You know, and he gave me that picture, for example. Yeah, that's Marion Pyle.
Oh, okay.
The first Dirt Digger meetings were held at the shop in Orangevale. They were really
where Orangevale.
Doris and Marion are kind of like the godparents of the Dirt Diggers North Motorcycle Club.
Okay. All right. And 3 or 4 of your most memorable moments while writing the book. Certainly, you know, there's a lot of racing. There's racing and there's people and there's all sorts of things going on. But there's got to be in 300 pages one or two that are like, I didn't know anything about this, and I thought I knew everything about Hangtown, and tell us what happened.
Well, this is kind of an offshoot from Hangtown, but it's it was right on the line when I was talking about Penton West. I had when I worked at Penton West, right after I'd left, because he had brought the employees from the southern store and from the Medford store to Sacramento, and so there were like two of us in the parts department, and there just wasn't enough work. So it got to a point where in April of '72, where Fred would tell me on Friday, well, I'm going to have to let you go. And then he'd call me on Sunday and say, can you come in? And I go, okay. And that went on for about a month. And then my friend, the same guy, Dave Buckmaster, was working at Vickers Honda. He said, hey, Mark, we need another bike builder here. And I get nervous if I'm standing around being paid. So next time when Fred called, I said, oh, Fred, I got a job over Vickers Honda. So I kind of, that's Bruce Young and Glenn Long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Very, very important people.
Continue on with the story.
Oh, well, Carl Crank came on board, and that was the other side thing. Fred gave me a Penton, one of the new ones, and I just wasn't quite recovered from my injuries. That's kind of what stopped me from going on. Was it took a few years before I was able to run and work out. And I was the kind of competitor that I worked out. And if I couldn't do that, I couldn't perform at my top, and I wasn't going to go out there and be pathetic. But anyway, Carl came on board just after I left, and there was a break-in, and the sheriff came around to my home, and I was out there one day in my garage working on bikes, and the sheriff pulls up and he comes and he says, there was a break-in, and so what's this over here? He started questioning me, and I was just so hurt, that they even thought I would do anything like that. And that stayed a mystery. And I even told Carl Crank about it when I reunited with him when I moved up here to Vancouver. I told him about it. I said, oh, it always bothered me for him to think that I would even do that, even think of it. Well, through Tom Stover, the mystery was solved. He knew the guy who had broken and stolen Carl's 100 Penton, which was all hopped up and really fast.
Sure. And
he got busted because he went to Dixon with it. And someone said, that's Carl Crank's Penton. Anyway, The mystery got solved, and I never knew about it until Tom told me about it while I was writing this book. And I felt like, oh, so that's the mystery. And Tom also told me that the guy who did it, not giving his name, not putting it in the book, he's become a really good guy. His mom worked at the school, made him go to juvie and all this stuff, and he became a really upstanding citizen. But somewhere in Roseville, there's a house with a bunch of High Point stuff buried in the backyard. Nobody knows where it is.
Well, someday maybe somebody will discover it, but at least your name was cleared, and it was not an inside job.
No.
What else? There's got to be one or two more. Give me another one.
Oh gosh. Well, this was a secret, but I guess it's not so secret anymore. But
don't worry, nobody's watching. Tell me.
Fred Moxley died, and when Fred Moxley died, his ashes were the Carl Crank and Dave Doherty and a few other people, 3 other dirt diggers took his ashes and spread them out on the starting line of the old Hangtown track at Prairie City.
Right.
I have since learned that a few other people have joined him.
On the starting line with their ashes?
The old track, the old oak tree track, not the current one.
Right. What else you got? Come on, let's go on an up note. Don't tell me about the ashes being spread on the starting line. I mean, it's a great story. I mean, it really, really is. But certainly you must have one more up your sleeve.
Well, it's a okay. Well, in Plymouth, and this is in the book. There's a letter there from the mayor of Plymouth trying to talk the club into changing the name of Hangtown to suit Plymouth, and within a couple years, the sentiment had completely changed because Hangtown Plymouth became known as the Woodstock of motocross.
Yeah.
Because and the wildness in the camping area after hours was so great that the Amador County Sheriff just basically said, at race day's end, he said, it's all yours. It was the Wild West. Okay. There's a lot of sub stories there. There's even some, and there is a little bit of a, during Roy McGill's time at the, as McGill's Park, Bruce Young told me about one where there was some issue, and I don't know if this is private, but there was someone's spouse came in waving a 6-gun and shooting it, and all the diggers, they were setting up the track for Hangtown, had to dive under their pickup, their trucks and vehicles to get out of the get out of the way of the.
Wait a minute now. This is not a story we all get to hear every day. So who had the gun? The wife came in.
Oh,
with the gun?
I don't see. I'm friends with the daughter of McGill's, and I don't want her to feel maligned or anybody. So I just can't drop a specific name. But
I would never ask you about the name, but I am going to ask you: did the wife come in with the guns shooting, or did the husband come in with the gun shooting?
First case.
First case? Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a commercial break. I'll take you out from that hot spotlight for a second. And when we get back, we're going to talk about the gap there was between the 2023 return of Mark LeRoux at Hangtown and when he was there before. We will be right back with more Mark LeRoux. This is going to be a good long break, Mark. If you get what I'm talking about, you could take a nice break. Okay?
Yeah.
We'll be back with more. Yeah, we'll be back with more Mark LeRoux in about 2 minutes.
I'm Don Kadowski, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Don't go anywhere.
Motocross struck America, coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
Wow, that worked out just perfectly now, didn't it?
Yeah.
Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, great. International Motocross Museum is well, you know what the best thing to do is go visit them on their new YouTube page, International Motocross Museum. It's about as close as you're going to get to those bikes until the day that museum opens. So that's the International Motocross Museum. My guest today is Mark LeRoux. We are talking about a lot of different things. That's for sure. And where we left off, there was a nameless shootout, and we're going to leave it at that.
It was a one-sided thing,
I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding between a.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It says in your book that you attended Hangtown in 2023. That was like 3 years ago. We are coming up again on that event, that great event, Hangtown. But there was a big gap between 2023 and when the last time you were at Hangtown. Why don't you tell me about that?
Well, in that interim of span of years, I attended chiropractic college. I had a 20-year competitive fencing career. And in the 90s, I was doing equine training and all that as we went over and teaching fencing at the Renaissance Fair, and running my practice, working at concerts, just busy time. But I always owned a motorcycle. Jim Dew is my brother-in-law. He was a good local racer. There's an article, him and his brother won the Dirt Diggers race in, I don't know, what was that, June, at White Rock. They were the two brothers, took first places in their classes. So they were the story that Bruce Young wrote about that event. Anyway, he's my brother-in-law, and they owned Hayward Yamaha, half owners anyway. And I got an IT 175, and I did a few rides with him. For example, when I got back from Slovenia, a friend of mine in Sebastopol who does ARMA had a BSA, a 72 BSA. I got it from him and rebuilt that. And when I moved up here, I was rebuilding BSAs. Yeah, there's the 250 I rebuilt. Okay. That's the 250 I rebuilt. And I love that bike. And yeah, nice one. Every bit of it. Dave Wedlake did the painting. He was a great painter. He used to do gold stars and take them to the auction in Las Vegas. That's how he made his living.
What year is this bike right here? And did you? Yeah, and you said
that's a 69 that I reconfigured as a 68 with the blue and white. The orange ones I thought were ugly, so when I redid it, I kind of remorphed it into the 67 colors. And Dave Wedlake kind of added that white in there on the oil cover to
looks nice.
Really neat, really nice.
Now, the point I was trying to make was: is it true that there was a 50-year gap between you going to Hangtown before 2023? So, in other words, you may have raced there and you did a lot of things there, but the last time you were on that hallowed ground was 73 before 2023.
Yep.
Wow.
I used to go back to White Rock and visit the park, and just look at it. Until lately, it was recognizable, but it was when I moved up, when I got back from Slovenia. It wasn't long before we moved up here, and I looked up Carl Crank and I started visiting him, and I started rebuilding bikes. One thing I really kicked myself about he gave me his original Sachs Boondocker, and I rebuilt it, and I ended up selling it. I wish I had never done that. I hate myself for that.
Don't hate yourself. And, there are a lot of people out there who have, and I say this to people all the time, because many times on Facebook and other places, people will say, I should have never sold that bike. I should have never sold that bike.
Well, it'd be such a great display now. And it would have been great at his celebration of life to be able to bring it and have it there.
Be grateful you had it. Be grateful you had a bike once and you had it and you loved it and you sold it, because there's a lot of people that spent 50 years in a cubicle, never had a motorcycle, never raced motocross, never had something like that. So, it's not like to have loved once and lost is better than to never have loved at all, but it's damn close. So at least you had it. But I understand the sentimental portion of that, in someone's memory, of course, to have that bike would have been.
Yeah, it would have been a great display. After 83, I came with a book. The next year, Jeff Kreckelberg came to me and said, Mark, would you like to organize a museum for Hangtown? Right. And I said, sure, So Tom Stover helped me, and we got a little crew together, and we had the first museum there. So in 84, we had a museum, and 80. I'm in 2000. See, I'm getting senile.
I get it.
In 24, we had a museum, and then last year we had another museum, and I'm organizing the museum for Hangtown 57 right now.
So when you say museum, you're talking about the day of the race museum?
On Pro Day, we have a race. We have a museum that is free, no charge to come in. It's got all kinds of memorabilia items, and Brad Lackey's Hangtown Trophy is the centerpiece of it. But Billy Grossi and other people are highlighted. Lots of posters on the walls, some signed. artifacts, really interesting artifacts. You know,
Right.
we get a pretty good attendance. A lot of people come around.
I just wanted to make it clear to the viewers that don't think you're going to Hangtown that weekend and you're going to go visit a physical location. What we're talking about is an extensive display the day of the race.
It's a tent. It's a big tent.
Yeah, I've seen it.
That you can walk into.
Yes.
And walk through and look at anything and talk to me and a couple other people, ask questions and stuff, and it's great.
You had Torsten Hallman do the forward to your book. Was he your first choice, or did you ask other people, or were you hoping to get Torsten and that's who you got?
Well, actually, what happened was Bruce Young actually did the forward, and it's still in the book. He did he did in his own handwriting. We decided to do that. Do it in your handwriting, Bruce. And he kind of wrote about the book, and that's kind of the forward, but it really wasn't a historical thing. It was more kind of a like endorsement, I guess. But
okay.
But I didn't have a forward. I had an introduction, and the introduction's still there, but I didn't really have a forward. And then when I got in contact with Torsten Hallman last fall, he I guess this had already been prepared for something else. And he said, I will send you this article I put together and some photos. And I said, well, thanks a lot. Can I use it in my book as a forward? Do I have permission? He goes, yes, you have permission. And so there I was. So I had all this stuff, and I thought, man, this is too good. So that and all the other stuff I had gotten along the way and kept putting into the book had moved it to a point where I had to completely do a new version of the book and get a new copyright application and everything.
I want to ask you one more question, but I'm careful with the questions because I don't want to give away too much of the book. But you know what? It's almost impossible.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
There's a lot of information in here. But do you recall from the day that they decided to make, the Hopetown race, bring it to Northern California, call it Hangtown? How long did it take? From conception of doing that to the day the gate dropped?
Well, as I was kind of saying earlier, I have the minutes and I've studied them, and I was looking at them again this morning to make sure that I said I wasn't inaccurate. But there's no mention of Hangtown in the minutes to the end of 68. There's no mention, and I surmise from that. Now, I've had a lot of conversations, and I think that I alluded to this. That's a whole different thing. I alluded to the time when Mike McGowan and Bill Onga were talking at a Helvetia race that late in 68. And that was purportedly where the name came up, and like whether Bill Onga said it or Mike McGowan said it, nobody really knows. Mike really didn't say that, yeah, I said it there. I don't think that's what I think. But as I said, I have Bruce Young and Mike McGowan's own words in typing, because they both put their opinions up in the past and they let me put it in the book. So you can read those and read what I put together in the chapter about the forming of the club and come to your own conclusions. But at some point, the rhyming of Hopetown and Hangtown and the use of the familiarization with locals with the name Hangtown, it was just natural. But it looks like from the records that Hangtown is not mentioned, but they already were looking for a track, and then they were already getting everything in order for the Murray's track before they even there's no mention of Hangtown until then. So I believe that when they found the property, because they were looking all over the place, outside of El Dorado County even, for a track. And when they found that, I think it was just, like a couple weeks before the race that they said, okay, we'll call it Hangtown. Right. But I'm not sure about that, but it's not in the minutes. The name is not in the minutes.
Okay, well, that's an interesting piece of information. That's for sure. And that's the way a lot of these things happen. Everything's a crazy idea 5 minutes before it actually takes place.
I don't know nobody knows who said it first. Bill Onga is not with us anymore, or I'm sure he'd say it was like this, because if there was a more honest man in the world in my life, I don't think I ever met anyone more honest and real than Bill Onga.
Hey, will you have your books available for sale at the Hangtown race this year?
Yes, I'm bringing a quantity with me, and because I can buy them at
Excellent.
my publisher's price, I can sell them less than they are on Amazon.
Great. That just came to a thought. So obviously you'll be there and you'll have your book. You've written 2 other books. One you didn't want to talk too much about, the Spook Tree, but there's another one, and the title of it, I don't know. It seems very.
Well, that's even harder. That's even harder to talk about. I just didn't want to waste time talking about the Spook Tree too much. It's
look, The River Flows: A Tale of the Modern Decline. The modern decline when? Because some people will say that's today. I don't know. So what is the modern decline?
Well, without saying the modern decline, I don't want to get too political here, but I'll tell you about The River Flows. Just basically, it's
Please.
a sequel. It's a sequel to Easy Rider.
Okay.
It's almost 900 pages long. That took me 8 years to write, and a lot of research, and a lot of my personal experience and people I knew in the Bay Area, my associations with a lot of people, and a lot of research. And a book that I would recommend to anybody that wants to know about what happened in the 60s is called Acid Dreams: The Complete Social History of LSD, the CIA, the 60s and Beyond by Lee and Schlein. I use that as one of my major source books for the social history of the 60s and what happened beyond that because of that period. But I go all the way back to the Roman Empire at times. I go back into early American history, the English Civil War, the American Civil War, and everything and all this, because in my book, the character Billy from Easy Rider survived and was kind of revived in secret, and he survived, but he became the way Dennis Hopper became in later life. And I got kind of an endorsement from Peter Fonda. I had written both and asked for permission to write a sequel, and I wrote their agents, and Dennis Hopper died right after I said I never got a direct answer from Peter Fonda's agent, but I happened to be watching Jay Leno when Peter Fonda was on right after that.
Yeah.
And he was sitting there and he goes, I don't care if anyone writes a book about it. A sequel.
Well, that's certainly.
They're both dead. They're both dead.
Yeah,
Peter just didn't have enough of an imagination, because I realized, Billy was shot by with a shotgun by bird poachers, which means it was bird shot, which means it was survivable.
Right. Well, it's 1960s movies, and
yeah, but there you are. But the problem with that book was that at the time I have a lot of really challenging history in there. And at the time, there were these BLM riots going on and all this stuff, and it just wasn't the time for the book, and so I unpublished it. But I may republish it.
Whoa. Let's back up. BLM, Bureau of Land Management.
No, the other one.
No, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, remember in 2020 when all these riots were going on and the whole terrible thing. Well,
wait. Let's back up. When did you write this book?
I wrote that book. I began that book in 2009 and finished it in 2000.
Oh, okay.
2016 or 17, and I had it published for a while, but then all this stuff started happening, and it was a lot of challenging stuff. Actually, the environment today is better for this book than it was then, because a lot of things have been revealed that makes the book less controversial.
I got you.
The Hangtown book is the only straight history I have written. The others are historical fictions, but I put a lot of history. I put a lot of history into those books.
Okay.
Yeah.
On a personal note, are you married? How long? Do you have children, grandchildren?
I've been married since 1999 to a California girl that joined me in Slovenia when I offered her to come and visit, and we met through the fair. And then when her father died, she rode horses, and I had my horse up in Sonoma County, and I said, "Come on up and ride my horse." And And then I went off to Slovenia and had to sell my horse, which broke my heart, but went off to Slovenia and, said, come over and visit. Well, she quit her job, put all of her stuff away and packed a suitcase and came. And I was like, okay, I got to pay attention to this. So before we came home, we got married in an 11th century castle on Bled Lake as the first American couple to be married in the Republic of Slovenia.
Boy,
And it became a business after that. It became a business. My best friend there organized it all. She arrived in a carriage. We were taken to the rowboat concession on Bled Lake, and I rowed her over and carried her up 88 steps to ring a bell of wishes in this old church.
Wow.
Yeah,
Somebody
I carried her
should-
88 steps.
somebody
that was
needs
the
to-
tradition, but I was one of the few guys that could do it.
Somebody needs to write a book about you. Forget about you writing a book about everything else.
No, I wrote enough about myself.
Did you ever-
The fruit tree is too much about myself. I was like almost embarrassed,
What
to
about
write that
children?
book.
You have children?
Well, because I got married so late, no.
Oh, okay. That's
Just
You know.
what happens in life sometimes.
that is what happens in life sometime. Now, it was, the book was a labor of love. You could certainly tell that, and anybody that picks it up will see it was such an arduous task. Who would you say were some of your biggest supporters? And you mentioned some guys earlier, Bruce Young and a few others, but along the way, who are some of the other people you would like to mention now that, we've spent, I don't know, close to over an hour talking about this? Some things must have been going on the right side of your brain while the left side is talking. So who were some people that were supportive with this project?
Well, Bruce Young was always absolutely. I have to underscore his name 3 times.
Okay.
Dave Dwordy, when he saw the book, he was in his last days, and he said, Mark, I hope you sell a ton of these books. He was a big supporter. The Dwordy family is a big supporter. I'm good friends with the whole Dwordy family, and it's a big family, and I love them. I can't say enough about Donna and her daughter, Hannah. And James Cross was great. He gave me a bunch of material, and he really loved the book. Of course, he's the grandson of Marion and Doris Pyle.
Mm-hmm.
And Paula was his mother, Paula Cross, and sister to Joe Pyle. And so there are, and Mike McGowan's been great. He's still a great friend. He and his wife, and they're over in Idaho where Bruce is, and they're big supporters. I know.
Do you watch
the Dirt Diggers? I think the guy that seemed to love the book the most in the Dirt Diggers was Mark Hilton. Probably he's the one that, and Eddie Sandoval seemed to really love the book right off. Mark Hilton was president of the club in 23, and he would love the book right off. I think Jeff Kruckelberg took a little time to warm up to it, but he's been a great supporter in the long run of the museum and now the book, I believe, and the whole club. In fact, I was blown away last year when they made me an honorary member of the club, and I'm wearing the shirt that they gave me to wear in the museum.
There it is, Mark LeRoux.
Yeah, and I'm the only honorary member besides Brad Lackey, which I think is probably wrong.
Is
there's a couple other people that I think should be honorary members, but
is there a link to your book on the?
Oh, you know what? I've made a big mistake here. I got to mention Ed Santon. Ed Santon was my link to helping me organize the museum. He's got a huge legacy. He's got a lot of stuff. I put a lot of stuff about him in the book. He was a big District 36 organizer and promoter. Right. He was responsible for all the sound research in the early days that got that. He did so much. I tried to put as much as I could in the book, but no, I got to underscore Ed Santon too. Oh man, I would have been mad at myself for forgetting him.
While I'm thinking about it, is there a link to your book?
Yes,
on the Hangtown? No. Let me finish here. Is there a link to your book on the Hangtown website? Because that would be a good place.
I hope. I hope that the club will decide to do that after maybe this interview and after this Hangtown. Maybe they'll do that. I have a website. I'm sorry, I was getting excited. I want.
And we're gonna.
I have a
and-
website where
and we're
there's
gonna
links
talk
to
about that.
Amazon. There's a color version and a black and white version. The black and white version is a lot more affordable.
Right.
And I created it because I thought maybe some people weren't buying the book because it's pretty expensive, you know.
How
I can't
expensive?
control it.
How expensive is the color? I got the color one right here. How much is it?
The color book on Amazon is like $58,
Not bad.
and then there's shipping. You know, I sell them at Hangtown, and I sign them for $40.
Okay.
But Amazon just does what they do, and but the black and white on Amazon is like $30. And I sell those for $20, you know. But the color version is so much nicer than black and white.
It certainly is. Now, moving on. Supercross. Do you watch it? Do you like it? Could you care less?
Well, I don't want to say I could care less, but I only watch it once in a while.
Right.
I hate to confess this. I might get a couple of Snickers, but the thing that I've enjoyed most watching on TV or online has been International Speedway.
Yeah. Well, that is very. You know what? As far as a live event goes, there is nothing more exciting to go watch live than Speedway.
And that's what we used to do back in the old days. Cal Expo and then Auburn, they had the Speedway events, and all the motocrossers used to go watch the Speedway. It was a great place to relax and watch some really fast competition, and love that, loved all that, reverse psychology about letting off, getting the traction, all that came into play. It was a lot of fun, go out, go to some, restaurant afterwards. And yeah, it was a great thing. So yeah, up here, I got into watching, the world champion GPs in Europe, and we had Greg Hancock for a long time, was I think 2 times at least world champion, but his wife came down with cancer. He's out of LA, and he just dropped out to take care of her.
Will you be writing another book?
Well, I have a couple in mind, but I don't know if I will. That it's like I really need to find something that could be a money maker for an income stream for for me and my wife. This is a real specialized book. Maybe because of this interview, maybe because if I get a link on the Hangtown site, the Dirt Diggers put a link in there or something.
Right.
Maybe that'll help. But it's been pretty word of mouth. It's really hard to compete against these big celebrities that get all this platform, But I have kind of a science fiction in mind that it would be a lot of fun for me to write, because it's got a lot of twists in it. But
what do you think about? I mean, it's inevitable. If we haven't, I probably have missed it. It's probably been on already. Electric bikes, electric motocross. What do you think about electric bikes? How do you feel about that new wave?
Well, like you said, it's probably inevitable. It's probably going to be forced on us, if nothing else. But a lot of people, at PCP, when I was doing a book signing there a couple of years ago, were saying, it's just coming. It's inevitable. And they showed me one. It's like you just dial this, like, what is it, an amp meter on as a grip, and you can set how much power the bike has. So the classes will be determined on what the setting is on your bike, and it's crazy, and it's silent. I kind of poo-pooed it. I've seen a lot of people put up things where someone's using a generator to charge their battery on their electric, motocross bike. It's kind of funny, but it'll probably be forced on us. I noticed around where I live here that a lot of kids are starting to get these electric bikes, and they're riding them all over the neighborhoods and all over the roads and in any direction they want. And it's kind of crazy, but I guess it's better than them sitting in front of computers and getting fat.
That's true.
It's probably going to happen. I don't know if it'll have as much audience appeal because, I think the noise is part of the thrill. And as a writer myself, I always listen to the engine. I would be, listening to where I was, and know how much I needed to crack the throttle for something, and how, right? We all did, the feedback of the exhaust note is a big thing you rely on. So I don't know. I guess, it's going to be more like bicycles, like, all the bicycle events. It's coming out of there, really. It's the people it's kind of I think leaning that way, where it's more like that kind of a thing. And who knows if the internal combustion audience will transfer, but it's a generational thing too. You know, there was a time when nobody would consider a motorcycle, a horse to a motorcycle instead of a horse. Oh, come on, you know. And that changed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they didn't want the locomotive either. It was noisy. It was, you know, the steam, the whole. But it built America. You know, the rails was what tied it together and made it. And I've got books. That's one of my specialties is American Western history, and I got books about the railroads. And man, where
there's a lot of skullduggery.
Where can people buy your book now? On Amazon?
It's on Amazon. I have a website. It's blackhawkpublishingllc.com, and I've got two links there, one to the color book, one to the black and white that can take you right to the Amazon page. You can try searching for it from Prairie City, from Hangtown to Prairie City and Back by Mark LeRoux, and it'll come up.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, I was thinking about talking to you about, you know, putting up you know, like I sent you that with the QR code in it. So yeah. I'm gonna have a placard at the race, so people can just, you know, follow that link if I run out of books or whatever.
After this show, I will get that information from you, and I will include it in my posts about the book and about this interview, so people will then have a clearer idea of where to buy it. I think the price, you know, I mean, I'm actually holding it here, and I've got a chance to look at it and see the information that's in it. So I think at $50, it's an incredible value, especially if you enjoy history about the greatest sport in the world, in my opinion. Mark LeRoux, did I forget anybody, or is there anything you would like to add before we conclude our program today?
Oh, I could go on for a couple hours, but
I don't have time for that.
Yeah, I got a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories. It's just how far you want to digress one way or the other. You know, there's always a dark side to things, but you know, I don't want to get into that. You know,
okay.
that's for very private conversations.
Hey, look,
you know?
maybe someday you'll come back, and you know, at that point we'll blow the lid off. We'll blow the lid off the whole thing.
I don't know. We'll see.
Mark
it's up to you. But I'll be happy to come back.
No, up to me. I do it right now, but that's okay. I don't want to, you know, let's not ruffle any feathers. From Hangtown to Prairie City and Back, perspective history of the Hangtown through the eyes of Mark LeRoux, a man who was not only, he was there, he experienced it, and he got a lot of firsthand information from a lot of wonderful people who helped to contribute to this book. Mark, one last reminder, as we conclude here, don't sign off, because I'm going to download this, and you know, so we have it, and I can send it to you, and you can maybe put it on your page or whatever you want to do with it as well. Okay. So you can cut your camera or whatever you want to do, but just don't sign off for maybe 10
I won't do anything for a while. So you absolutely have all the opportunities you need, because I wouldn't want to be the agent of messing up this interview.
No.
Capture, you know.
One last time, Mark LeRoux.
Thank you.
From Hangtown to Prairie City and Back, a perspective history of the Hangtown Motocross Classic, the club, and the parks. Mark, thank you for taking the time.
Come to Hangtown and come see the museum.
Yeah, come see the museum and get an autographed copy of the book, right?
Yep.
All right. Mark LeRoux, thanks again, brother. You, You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. My guest tonight was Mark LeRoux. You want to go out and get that book, or if you're going to Hangtown, be sure to pick up a copy autographed by Mark himself. That wraps it up for this episode of Vintage Motocross Q&A. Be sure to share it with your friends, invite them, follow us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll see you next time on Vintage Motocross Q&A.